through.
I reckon we are going to be laughing all the way through this one. Thank you for tuning in to this Self-Love Greenlight. This is me, Trina Kavanagh-Thomas, and I am back this week with another incredible expert when it comes to self-love and self-care when you're in business. And that's what the Self-Love Greenlight is all about. It's all about you while you're in business doing all your incredible work, that you implement self-love and self-care to make sure you're able to grow the business and extend the business and even enjoy the life that you lead as well. So that's what it's all about. Today I have the most incredible human here, Tania Danielle, and we met each other. Funnily enough, through another connection of ours called Jenny Donato, and we met through a collaboration, and it was really funny because we were put in the same group, and when we got chatting to each other, we were like literally life twins or something like that. We'd literally gone through the same old shit, you know, and the same stuff, all the way from the fitness stuff, from the fitness realm, all the way into the spiritual side of stuff. And it's really, you know, I had to get her on here because even though we're in synergy with some of the things that we do, I always truly believe, you know, with out of the 8 billion people in the world, we can't serve everyone, and not everyone is for us, and there's always someone out there for us, and I do believe that. And yeah, I have to share this incredible person today. So I'll tell you a little bit about Tania. So Tania works with female business owners who want to change how they feel about their bodies, but have unfortunately been stuck in a vicious binge diet cycle. And we've all been there, even I've been there myself as well. And she helps them start accepting and even love themselves by feeling accepted, valued, and worthy of love, just as they are, without trying to fix how they look. That is super, super powerful. And the podcast today is Be Kind to Yourself and Your Body. Welcome, Tania. It's great to have you here.
Do you know, honestly, I love that intro. Thank you so much. I need to get you on everything I do.
Just to introduce you.
Introduce me exactly like that. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me.
Look, anytime. I really want us to get started because what I really want to know about is your background to begin with, because you haven't ended up doing this just for the sheer hell of it, and it hasn't come to you with like an idea overnight. Okay, it may have come through a download, but I do personally believe that a lot of things come from the growth and the journey that we've been on. So could you, just share with us the growth and the journey that you've been on?
Massively, and I couldn't agree with you more. Most people who are doing some type of healing work, some type of therapy work, some type of coaching, whatever it is, quite often it's from our own experiences and where we've been as well. So and it's growth, it's continuous growth. So my journey actually started when I was really young. And I never ever liked who I was. I never liked my body. I remember like at a really young age, really young, like counting calories with my mum, like really young age. I could remember like all the calories, and I was always really harshly critical. Really, like I hated myself. I hated my body. I was harshly critical to myself. And I remember that, and I probably, looking back, I think I probably felt, very anxious, as you would when you've got those type of thoughts and those type of feelings about yourself. But at that point, we didn't really know what anxiety was. I didn't know what anxiety was. I never heard of it. And when I was younger, I kind of like rebelled against it. So instead of turning to fitness, I did do a little bit of ballet when I was younger, but as a teen, I kind of rebelled a little bit, as we all do. I rebelled a little bit, and I kind of got into substances. I got into drugs, got into alcohol, and I kind of went down that route. And looking back and knowing obviously kind of like the journey and where I am now, you know, it was just an escapism. It was, you know, I didn't like I said, I didn't like who I was, and it was a way to kind of like escape these feelings, because obviously it made me feel good at the time. I was like, oh my God, this feels nice, you know, let's go partying, you know. And it started off feeling great, you know, I felt fantastic. Yeah, these substances, these pills, these things, they make me feel fantastic. And they made you feel amazing at the beginning.
Yeah.
At the beginning, they make you feel amazing. It's like drinking makes you feel amazing at the beginning, and then what starts off feeling amazing can end up going down a very dark route.
Yeah.
You know, it can spiral massively. And I, you know, during those years, it spiraled massively. It turned into, you know, I don't want to say, well, it was quite a big addiction. You know, I lost quite a few friends.
Yeah.
As many of us have, you know, through you know, this way of life. And, you know, it wasn't until I got to a point where I ended up in hospital.
Wow.
And I ended up in hospital, and I remember I ended up in hospital, my whole body went blue, literally, my whole body went blue. And I literally thought I was going to die. I really did think I was going to die. My whole body went blue, my veins were sticking out, my heart, I literally thought I was having a heart attack. And the ambulance came, and I ended up in hospital, and I was just like, oh my God. The next day when I woke up, and I did wake up, thankfully, I looked at myself in the mirror, and I just thought, oh my God, who are you? Who are you? I do not recognize you. I don't know who and what has happened to this person in the mirror, you know, like. And I looked at myself, and I just thought, I've been given a second chance.
Yeah.
I've been given a second chance. And from that day, I swore to myself that I would change my life. I swore to myself I would change my life. I would change my behaviours. I was, you know, I'd been given a second chance. So for me, how I had to do that, I had to stop drinking. I had to start gradually changing the environment, the places where I went, who I spent my time with, you know. And I didn't do this on a therapy level at all, which was so bizarre. What I did was, subconsciously, I knew what I had to do, and it was like an automatic process for me. Bit by bit, I was putting new things into place. Bit by bit, I was thinking, right, okay, this doesn't quite feel right for me anymore. I can't go to those places. I tried to go to, you know, partying with friends that I'd partied with before, and it never felt right, because obviously I was sober. You know, I was having Red Bull, and I was like, this still doesn't feel right. It was making me really anxious. So I gradually pulled away from those things, and I thought, right, okay, I'm going to join the gym. So I thought, right, I'm going to join the gym, and bit by bit, I started to go a little bit more frequently. I started to meet more friends there. I started to do more classes, and I started to, like, you know, I was really getting into it. Without me knowing what I was doing is at the time, because I was doing everything by myself, and I wasn't being guided, or wasn't being supported or anything like that. What I now see is I was actually swapping one addiction for another. You know, I then started getting really obsessive with the gym. Really obsessive. I was like obsessive about what I ate. I was going to, like, I must have been doing like 2 hours on an evening, maybe an hour in the morning. And I just completely threw myself into like the gym life. And as much as we can perceive it to be healthy, I'm not saying that, you know, exercise isn't healthy. I'm not saying like nutritious foods, you know, don't eat nutritious foods. We can get very, very obsessive. And that's where I was at. I went all full speed ahead into fitness. I then got that obsessive. I ended up competing, and it was just, everything was all consuming. Everything was just obsessive, consuming. I was very much about, you know, how did my body look, you know, and I wanted to, and I was still never, ever happy with my body, ever. I wanted to constantly change. I don't want to talk, but I had like implants because I wanted to change my body. I was still super, super critical with myself. And then I wonder why, well, at the time, I didn't realise, but I had super high levels of anxiety. And looking back, because obviously what had happened is all the drugs was out my system, and I'd gone into this quote unquote clean life. So all the emotions that I was feeling before I got into the drugs, and also not only before I got into the drugs, but all the things that happened, you know, like the abuse, the, you know, the traumas, you know, the violence, the, you know, the things that happened in that drug world, obviously they were being suppressed. So when I stopped drinking, taking drugs, and I came into this fitness world, all those emotions had to come out somewhere. So not only was I being obsessive about my body, obsessive about food, I had all these like emotions that was like boiling and coming to the surface as well. And it was just like, what you would think would be the healthiest part of my life was really, really, really not. Mentally, emotionally, physically. Yeah, I was probably, I don't want to say the worst place possible, but I wasn't in a very good place at all.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you've really touched on this as well. I'm glad that you've actually touched on the, you know, the exercise addiction aspect, because mine was in tandem. So it was exercise addiction first, and then it was in tandem with alcohol to kind of like suppress everything down, and drugs as well. Drugs always led like all the way along. Yeah. And sometimes we don't talk about this in the fitness world, because, you know, when we go to our doctors or, you know, our health service or whatever, you know, a lot of people would say, well, if you're feeling anxious, go and exercise. If you feel depressed, go and exercise. But you know, when you've got an exercise addiction, exercise is not the answer. It isn't, because exercise then becomes a coping mechanism and a suppressant for what is actually underneath all of it. So just for the audience, what happened for you to take that kind of change, to move out of that, you know, to break that cycle, to break that pattern? Because even I know, you know, you can exercise. God, I was exercising 30 hours a week, and I'm sure you were probably doing all there as well. And to, you know, for someone to actually see it and recognize it, what took you that moment? What was the moment where you actually saw it, where you actually knew it?
So first and foremost, I started to binge eat a lot, and I started to binge eat, and I was like, at first I was like, oh my goodness me, I can eat quite a lot of food in one go, right? And I was like, I was like amazed by it, and I was like, oh my god, how much food did I eat? Wow, that was incredible. And I just thought it was a one-off. I just thought that was a one-off. I didn't think anything of it when I first did it. And then when I did it again, I was like, oh my God, why can't I stop? And then there was this overwhelming, like, there was this like, oh my goodness, mate, I cannot stop this. It was almost like I'd gone into like a trance, or I'd gone into like this, a different person. I just completely blanked out. So I'd like binge. I started to binge. And then what I would do is, because I was binging, I'd try and correct it. Now, my way of thinking at that time was to correct it, was to diet or to eat healthy or to starve myself. So because I've binged, say, for example, in an afternoon or an evening, what I do is I would be so desperate to correct it. So what I would do is think, I need to not eat any breakfast. I need to not eat until I'm hungry the next day, or like do intermittent fasting, right? Yeah. So not eat for 2 to 3 days. And I would think that I was correcting it. And what was happening is it was getting worse and worse and worse. And then not only the binging was getting worse, so my obsessive thoughts were getting worse. So like I was thinking about food continuously. If there was food in the office, it would like literally, I'd be seeing this food and I'd be craving this food. I'd be salivating this food, you know, and I would be obsessively counting calories. I mean, I know people like do, you know, MyFitnessPal, and they do like calorie counting and they do macro counting. And I was obsessively doing all of those things. Now, the thing is, we have been told doing these things are quote unquote healthy. We've been told that they're healthy. And it's like, now for me, what is health? You know, what is health? And this is the question, what is health? So for me, health is not just physical. It's not about a body size. It's not about a body weight. It's about being able to move your body and feel happy when you move. It's about being able to think clearly and having clarity. It's about being able to eat freely, you know, health for me is mental, physical and emotional.
Yeah.
And I was very, very, very fixated on the physical, very fixated on the physical. And I was only focused on the physical. I wasn't thinking about how I felt. I wasn't thinking about how I was thinking about food. I wasn't thinking about how I was obsessing about food. And the more I tried to restrict and the more I focused on the physical, the more my mental and my emotional health suffered massively, massively. So I think for me, what happened when I got to that point and when it really, for me, it really made me think about, you know, how I was, I don't even want to say how I was behaving, because it was because it would take me hours to go shopping. So I'd go food shopping and I would count, you know, like it says how many calories per biscuit, or I would count how many biscuits was in a packet, because I knew I was going to go home and eat them all anyway. So I would obsess with it, and it'd take me hours to go food shopping. And I'd think, this isn't right. I'm looking at every label. And then I'll never forget one day, and I've said this story before to other people, but I'll never forget one day. So I was down one aisle and I saw this mistake on a nutritional label. And it was a mistake. I think it was something, it didn't quite work out right. So the 30 calories and the 130 grams and the 100 grams didn't work out. There was a mistake on it.
Yeah.
And it was something, it was a big company. And instead of me just thinking, oh, it's just a mistake, I took this box to the customer service and I spoke to the customer service lady and I said, there is a mistake on this label. And it was the customer services face, the lady at the customer services, it was her face that made me realise I need to get help.
Wow.
Because she looked to me as if to say, like, you are bonkers. What do you want me to do about it? I don't care if there's a mistake on the label. And I just thought to myself, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing? And not only that, what I was doing as on top of that is I was secretly eating. I was eating in secret. You know, I didn't want people to see me eating because they saw me as the healthy one. So if I had anything that was quote unquote naughty, like chocolate or anything that other people didn't think I should be eating, I'd eat in secret. And I was like, something feels off. Something feels off. And I knew that I'd got very obsessive, but I just didn't know how to get out of it. Really didn't know how to get out of it. So it was at that point that I thought, right, okay, I'm going to, you know, get support, and I'm going to really, you know, change what is happening, because I didn't know what was happening in my body.
Wow. And when you decided to get support, what type of support did you go for? Because obviously there's loads of different support networks out there and things, and there are specialized and specialist eating therapies, as you know, therapists as well out there. So where did you get your support?
So I went to doctors first and foremost, and I ended up getting I don't know if it was CBT, or looking back, it felt almost like CBT, but I think there was a mix in there. So maybe it was like a pluralistic therapy. But I did get therapists, whether she was a psychotherapist or whether she was a psychologist. I never asked, to be honest. But I did get therapy myself, and I went through that route. And honestly, it changed. Don't get me wrong, when I think I was about 8 months in an outpatient eating disorder clinic. Sorry, I can't get my words out. So about 8 months, and then I think after that, I never felt ready to leave. I still never felt ready to leave. But then it was at that point when I knew myself, I had to develop myself and continue this journey myself in my own way.
Yeah.
This is when I kind of really started to like look into, like, you know, self-love, you know, self-acceptance, being kind to myself, you know, really changing how I saw myself. Because when I first went, I remember one of the appointments, and she asked me to say something kind to myself, and I couldn't even read a sentence on a piece of paper that was saying, you know, I am kind, or I am lovable, or whatever it was a sentence. and I couldn't even read it. I couldn't even literally read it, never mind read it out loud to myself.
Wow.
And, you know, when I look back and I even think about that time, you know, I really punished myself. I absolutely punished myself. I hated myself with a passion. And it was difficult. It was really difficult. But I think a lot of things stem from that for me, and especially my experience, especially obviously my work experience and my personal experience. I feel a lot of things come from how we speak to ourselves and how we feel about ourselves and what the beliefs, what we have about ourselves. It massively stems from that.
Absolutely. And, you know, as you were saying, that kind of, it's almost, it is self-loathing, isn't it? You know, and not believing that you can be kind or lovable or, you know, important in the world. And sometimes these things are like kind of really hidden, but then they're hidden, as you know, as you were saying, under patterns. And until we get the support that we need, whether it's, you know, whether it's through therapy, whether, you know, whoever it's through, sometimes it's very difficult to not know our own blind spots. I think a lot of people talk about this now, don't they? Is the blind spots behind everything. Would you just share for the audience as to, you know, what you couldn't see, but what your therapist could see? Sometimes these are the things that make a massive difference when it comes to self-care and self-love, especially when people are tending to do the journey alone.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing, don't get me wrong, I commend anybody who wants to do this journey alone. I really do. But what tends to happen is we end up, I don't want to say end up fighting, we end up fighting this battle. We end up fighting this battle because we cannot see what we cannot see, like you just said. We cannot see what we cannot see. And when we've been doing and when we've been stuck in our own behaviours for such a long time, they are on autopilot. We cannot see what other people can see. Because we are just on autopilot. Our behaviours are on autopilot. And what generally happens is we then deepen those behaviours because we think those behaviours are doing us good. So it's like, it's so difficult. It really, really, really is. It's like the things that I don't even necessarily say the things that my therapist saw. I think what she did was she started to really challenge my thoughts. She started to challenge my thinking. She started to challenge my beliefs. She really started to challenge and question, you know, the things that I thought were true. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, at that time, there was my truth. There was my truth, but that didn't mean that they were the ultimate truth, right? We all have our own belief systems. Every family has their belief systems. We all have our own thoughts and feelings about ourselves, and we think they are true. But actually, is it the ultimate truth? Is it set in stone? Or is it just the truth that we've made it? So we believe that we can't succeed. We believe that we're no good. We believe that we're not good enough. Is that the ultimate truth? No, that's just what we believe. That's just our truth. So she really started to challenge my own beliefs about myself. And like I said, when I ended therapy, I didn't feel like I was ready to end therapy, but I also, it ended at the right time for me because I knew that I wanted to continue my own journey and develop in my own way. And that is where I really started to continue and develop and grow in my own way of, you know, self-love and compassion as well. And it was like, that's where I think everything she did and everything kind of like, it all came together.
Yeah. And I think, you know, like what you were saying, therapy really does have an incredible place. I know that some people can go to therapy for a long, long time. But what you were mentioning here is that you kind of knew when that therapy journey had ended. And it sounds like you took on the challenges that she gave you as well, because sometimes these challenges can be quite triggering and can make us feel like, oh shit, you know, because they see through us, for want of a better word, see through our shit sometimes. but I want to know, obviously after the therapy and everything, tell me about how your business came together after that, because obviously, as a result of what happened to you, you've created this beautiful business that is really deeply honed in on self-love and self-care. So,
yeah, so don't get me wrong, I had those moments, but you said dug into the shit. Oh my god.
yeah.
Had a lot of those moments, especially, and I think that's growth for me. I think that's growth when we have those moments of, oh my goodness me, I can't do this is like really digging in, it's digging deep. I honestly do believe it's it's growth. It's that uncomfortable feeling, that knowing that we are changing that subconscious, we are changing those behaviors, we are moving forward in a way that has been stopped before. These are the things that normally, when we are not working with someone, these uncomfortable feelings are the things that stops us moving forward. This is why we normally revert back into our real behavior. But yeah, when we're working with someone and we have those uncomfortable feelings, we have those moments of discomfort, we have two choices. We either continue moving forward with the therapist and we continue with those feelings, or we can stop. Most people, if they're on that journey, they want to move through it. So yeah, I've definitely had those as well.
Yeah, you do.
And I still do.
Yeah, and the thing is, right, it doesn't necessarily fully stop the stuff that you go through. It just means that sometimes you can navigate through it, and you're going to survive it, isn't it?
Definitely.
So share with me this creation then. How did your business come about?
So after I obviously ended therapy, and I started to develop my own. I started to really get into meditations, hypnosis, really spirituality, and I really started to do a lot of work on myself. So I did a lot of work on myself, EFT tapping. I did lots of different I want to say holistic therapies, and then I ended up traveling for about a year. I got divorced, so I did a bit of an eat, pray, love thing. I went traveling. I thought, I'm not going to come back until I feel really intuitive that I really want to come back. And while I was away, I thought to myself, do you know what? I do not want to do something that I'm not passionate about. I don't want to do something where because I used to do accounting, financial accounting. Oh my God. You did. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And it really, really, really isn't me. Financial accounting really isn't me. So I thought, right, okay, what can I do? And I'd done some practitioner courses, and I'd done lots of different holistic practitioner courses when I got back. And it was actually when my friend, she was going to do, I think one of those, one of those crazy, I don't know what I call them. They're them diets, them shakes. She was going to do something like that. And I was just oh my God, I'm so passionate about this. I really need to get the word out. And I was already doing health and fitness anyway. So I was already doing some PTing. I was already doing some kind of coaching and stuff like that. And I just thought, what, I've really got to kind of move into that area where it's people really change how they feel about themselves and their body. Because this is the foundation to everything. It is the absolute core. How we feel about ourselves affects everything, and how we feel about our body affects everything, absolutely everything. So from that point, that's when Tania Danielle, at the time it was called something different, was born. So I'm just and here I am doing what I'm doing, helping people, and just progressing all of the time. And I absolutely love what I do. And I love helping people change how they feel. It's lovely to see the progress.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is the progress that you see people feel.
Yeah.
Quickly before we go, is just to share, what would be a top tip for someone if they say, are going through this, they're stuck in that vicious cycle of binge diet cycle. What would be a top tip that you would give them?
So first and foremost, I would say stop dieting. Dieting, as much as we think it's a good thing, dieting really, really, really can have that restriction mindset, which obviously that's what it is. It's a restriction mindset. You know, the more we restrict, the more we want the thing that we're restricting. So if it's normal human behavior, right? If we say to a little child they can't have something, what do they want? The thing that we're saying they can't have. It's the same with the mind and body with food, you know, like it's exactly the same. So really stop dieting. And I don't mean like, you know, just give yourself permission in your mind that you can have anything. It's how we think about food. It's how we approach food. The more you tell yourself you cannot have something, the more your mind will want it, the more your body will want it. And the next thing I would probably say, really start and just be aware of how you speak to yourself. You know, are you pulling yourself apart? Are you criticizing yourself? You know, when you look in the mirror, do you see yourself and say, I hate this, I am bad? You know, do you really pull yourself apart? And just catch them moments and just question that. Are you really? Are you really that bad? Are you really? You know, question, is this really true? Is that the ultimate truth? And I don't mean, are you feeling that right at that moment? Because you might be, but is that the ultimate truth? You know, look at your life. Look at the complete opposite. Look at the good things. What are the good things that you have done in your life? You know, and really look at, have you always felt like this? Because I can guarantee there will be evidence to disprove the way you're currently thinking right now. It's just really trying to challenge those thoughts, challenge those feelings that come up when you see yourself in the mirror. And yeah, just have compassion and just kindness to yourself, and really think about, you know, how do you speak to your best friend? And this is a really good exercise, and I absolutely love this exercise. How do you speak to your absolute either utmost love family, you know, the person you love the most in this world, or your best friend? You know, how do you speak to these people? Would you say to your best friend, you know, I hate you, you're fat, you need, you know, your belly thinner, you know, in order for you to be a friend of mine, I want your waist to be small? No, right? Would you say your bum needs to be rounder, firmer? Don't speak to me until your bum's a certain size? No, right? What do you value in your friend? You know, what are the values? And I can guarantee it with nothing to do with her body or his body. And really start thinking, right, okay, how do I speak to my friend? And really start turning that inwards and start speaking to yourself in the same way that you speak to your friend.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on today. And just to recap for everyone, so Tania shared her story of where she came from and how she's gotten to what she's doing now, and how she's gone from, you know, a place of which pretty much self-loathing to a place of beautiful self-love, and how that self-love, you know, is really underpins, really, but it underpins the work that you do, but also is to help you with, you know, with what you're doing as well. Because when the more you kind of feel into and turn inwards, being your own best friend, the more you're able to share that even with other people as well.
Completely.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. You can find Tania Danielle at Insta, Tania Danielle, or her website, taniadanielle.co. So not .co.uk, .co. Okay, so we'll pop those links on the I'll get there in the end, underneath on the podcast, on YouTube, wherever you see it. But we'll pop them down anyway, and then you'll be able to soak in her amazing work for yourself. Anyway, thank you very much for being on here today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, darling.